Welcome to Next to Madison, a podcast to help you live your best life.
Back to another episode of Next to Madison. I'm your host, Madison Malloy, and on this episode, we are talking about the benefits of being run over. Yes, I know that sounds a little odd, but it is the title of a new amazing book by our guest who is going to join us and tell us this amazing story, Naseem Rochette. Amazing, beautiful, beautiful, inspiring individual, but it's really how she took such a tragedy and had such a positive perception on it, and all the things she learned about life and the importance of being present, the importance of choosing your story and really perceiving things more in a positive light than a negative light, because we do choose our story. So on this episode, we are talking tragedy to triumph, because this woman is absolute rock star, and I can't wait for you guys to hear this episode. So we will be right back after this brief message on Next to Madison. Thanks.
Hey, it's Madison Malloy. Just wanted to remind you to make sure you grab a copy of my book, Time to Lighten the Fuck Up. It is a great, funny self-help book that is going to help you get out of your own way. I have already helped thousands and thousands of people, and they are on their way to living their dream life, and I want every listener to be able to live their dream life as well. So grab a copy of the book on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, or even the audiobook on Audible. Now back to the show.
We are back with our amazing guest on this episode of Next to Madison. I've got with me speaker on trauma and transformation with an amazing story. We've got Naseem Rochette with us. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for having me, Madison. I'm excited.
I am so excited to have you here because I am just absolutely amazed by your story and your transformation. So let's just get right into it. You were run over.
I was run over. Yep. And I was run over not just once, but 3 times. So
like 3 different times, or like 3 times at once?
I know, it was all in the same afternoon. It was
okay. I was like, you shouldn't cross the street anymore.
Oh my God, no, I wouldn't cross the street if it were 3 separate times. I would have to say that would have been my fault.
Right. Okay. So, well, I'm so glad you're with us to share this amazing story. So what happened?
So, beautiful sunny day at 4:00 in the afternoon.
In New York?
Was actually New Jersey, the town where I live in, South Orange, New Jersey. I was actually coming home from work, taking a little bit of an early train. I was going to go out to dinner with my husband, our 3 kids. We had a brand new au pair starting that day, because my husband and I both work. It was such a gorgeous day that I told my husband, I said, don't pick me up from the train station. I'll walk a little. Now, I was in my 5-inch power heels. I was in the city. I'm short, so I knew those heels. And, I saw my husband. He was at the bottom of a hill. Our town has some hills, so I didn't want to walk up the hills in my 5-inch heels. I said, meet me at the bottom of the hill. And I see him, and I could have just, run across the street to him. He was catty corner. But there were crosswalks. We were in front of a middle school. So I decided to, I'm going to be respectful, take the crosswalk. So I crossed a first crosswalk. I'm in the middle of a second crosswalk when I see a car turn towards me. Now I yell, the car, but, I was in the middle of the crosswalk, actually just a few feet from my husband. So, the car hits me and then stops. So I'm standing in the crosswalk, hit by a car, everything, time has frozen for me. So while I'm standing there, up against this big SUV, I'm thinking to myself, I can't believe you're hitting me. Like, I'm having a great day. It's a fabulous day. And, I think I'm going to be late for dinner now. I'm going to be black and blue. At least I have a good cocktail party story.
So you're fine at this point when he
I'm fine. Yeah. So like all these kind of, I don't want to say shallow, but not really,
right,
crisis-oriented thoughts are going through my head. And then the car accelerates. And I fly onto the hood. I fly, onto the roadway.
Oh my.
I know. My husband said it was like monster truck driving over me. And, I'm yelling. There are other people yelling. My husband's yelling. And then the driver reverses and drives over me a second time. And then the driver goes forward and reverses and goes forward and
No.
drives over me a third time. And then I'm pinned under the car. And, so the driver had driven over me 3 times. So the
Oh,
tires went actually over me 5 times, the front and the back tire. So, over my head and
oh,
neck, over my chest, over my knees. And I was conscious through this whole
oh.
episode. And, although it probably only took a matter of seconds, for me, it was about 20 minutes of dialogue, in my head, reflecting on my life, thinking about my kids.
So
And,
was this like an attempted hit on you?
I get that question a lot, Madison. And no, it was, a stranger who just made a lot of very bad decisions.
And so you just happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. So that guy was very angry.
Well, so it was a woman. And I
So it was
think
done on
that
purpose.
it wasn't on purpose. One of the things I talk about is, I just wrote a book about this. One of the things I talk about is she never actually acknowledged what happened, or, said sorry, or, showed any concern. So we don't know why she did it. I have some suspicion, or I have some ideas as to why maybe she just kept driving over me, but
It doesn't
I
make any
can't.
sense.
No, I think so. This is what I think happened. I think that when she first hit me, one of the witnesses said maybe, she was on her phone, maybe, but she hit me and I was fine. It could have been over and not a big deal. Then she accelerated, and I think she was trying to flee the scene because she really didn't have any insurance. And
Okay.
then I think when she heard people yelling, she was trying to get back down to where she hit me. And then I think the third time she was probably just trying to get off me. So that's what I think, but we don't really know.
Did she go to jail?
No, she lost her license for 10 days and got a ticket, failure to yield to a pedestrian.
Are you
Uh,
OMG?
yep.
Oh my God. So you're alive at this point.
So I'm alive, yes. So, I spent, for me, it was about like, 20 minutes of slow motion. As you hear in the movies, seeing the movies, time was frozen, and I was
Oh,
thinking about my 3 kids. At first I was like fighting. I was, trying to get out from underneath the car. But, when she ran over me the second time, I just knew like something wasn't right. I just felt like I wasn't going to make it out. And I could hear in my husband's voice, in his screams, I could hear he was watching me die. Like, and the other witnesses, like, this
yeah.
was an end of life moment for me.
And do you remember the pain?
While it was happening, there was no pain. I was so lost in thought.
Probably your body's in complete
Mhm.
shock too.
Yeah. The pain didn't set in until the car stopped. And then, reality came back. I realized I was alive. But
Oh,
I
so you
know.
go to the hospital, and what are you injured with at this point?
So I go to the hospital, and as you can imagine, everyone, I was conscious. So every time they asked me what happened, I tell them I was run over 3 times, tires over me 5 times. They do every test you can imagine. And Madison, I didn't break a single bone. I had no
Talk
skull
about
fracture,
a guardian
no
angel
internal
with you.
bleeding. Somehow I got lucky. I had no broken bones, but couldn't walk. I couldn't see. The tires had actually driven over my head and my neck. Like,
Oh, I mean, how it didn't crush you?
I don't know.
You had angels with you.
You know,
Oh,
I have no idea how I survived it. One of my doctors said my pec muscle was ripped the width of the tire.
oh God.
I know. I don't
Oh.
know how I made it.
So that is a traumatizing, life-altering, life-changing experience, which obviously led to the book. Tell us about the book.
Yeah. So, this experience happened, and, obviously I survived, but it really, it was not, not an easy experience. I mean, nothing was broken, but I came home kind of fully broken. And,
Yeah.
that morning, the day of the accident, I talk about it was this beautiful day. I was having a great day. I had worked very hard to be the person that I was on that day. I had worked really, worked hard, with my career, as a mother, I had 2 master's degrees. Like, I really worked hard to be a person that I was proud of, and that's after, a youth that I was not, where I was not comfortable with who I was. I'd say probably the first 25 years of my life, I
Yeah.
was really insecure and shy. It probably took me another 15 years of, just life and maturity and lots of good self-help books to become a person that I liked. And on that day, I had finally, I was a person that I liked. I was proud of myself, proud of my life. And then that was all just taken away. That powerhouse that could solve
Yeah.
complex problems, juggle 100 things. She was nowhere to be found. And
Wow.
yeah, I suspect you can really relate to that. We're so wired to be strong and do so many things as working mothers, and
Yeah.
just women that want to have career and, family, and so many whatever it is, there are multiple dimensions to life, and I had worked very hard to juggle all of those and
Yeah.
to solve tough problems and to make it look easy. Like, it wasn't always easy, but,
No.
I tried to just keep it together and did a good job of keeping it together.
And
And
so you feel that even though you had no, not a broken body, your soul was broken. What do you think about that ripped away who all the stuff you had built up?
well, my mind was broken, Madison. I could not think. I could not do simple things like fill out a camp form. Never mind, I couldn't walk. I couldn't see. I couldn't take a shower. I couldn't hold a
So
coffee
you
cup.
were injured, just in a very
I was
different way.
injured. Nothing was broken, but it was, I had nerve damage,
Ah,
torn MCL, I had to have surgery in my eye. Nothing that they did, deemed necessary to keep me in the hospital, but certainly, enough that I was no longer, a functioning human.
and so what was that? How long was that road to recovery?
So, the physical injuries, probably after a year you couldn't see them, you know, um, but the mental injuries, the change to my psyche has been a long, long journey. And candidly, look, I'm not the same person I was 5 years ago. Am I just as happy? Absolutely. Can I juggle 100 things and, go party in Vegas? No. Those days are probably over because I have a traumatic brain injury. And so there's a lot of sensitivity to light and to noises. I still have panic attacks and PTSD. I'm no
Of
longer
course.
wearing stilettos because, I have a knee that could give out any second.
And
Luckily the scars on my face have healed. But, so from a physical perspective, I was able to, move forward, in about a year. I mean, I've still had I had another surgery earlier this year, but no one looks at me and sees what happened.
no, you
But
seem so just
fun.
perfect in your
Yeah.
own skin. So let's talk about that, because when people do have traumatic experiences, do you believe in the saying everything happens for a reason?
I do. I believe that we control our narrative and we
Hmm.
control how we look at life. And what I like about that saying is it says, what, this might have been really horrible, but I get to choose how I interpret it and
Yeah,
how I
it's
move forward.
perception, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's one of the real gifts, I think, of this experience is it was really like, I'm not going to say it wasn't horrible and hard and it was tough on my kids, but we also really got to learn that we do control our narratives. We can tell our own stories, and we could make the decision that this was going to be a happy story. Am I changed? Am I different? Are there some limitations? Absolutely. But we look at the fact that I survived as the best
As
part.
right.
And
So what do
something
you
to
think
celebrate.
that, because you have such a positive perception, what were the blessings that came out of this?
Well, I think the most important thing that I learned, and I mentioned, I was this powerhouse that liked to juggle it all.
Yeah.
Um, well, after the accident, that person was nowhere to be found. In fact, I all of a sudden became this person that everybody wanted to help. Everybody wanted to bring me flowers and dinners and drive my kids. And I was so embarrassed, Madison. I was like, I'm not a person that needs help. I'll figure it out. And every act of kindness was actually like a debt in my ledger. I
Oh,
was so uncomfortable with
accepting
people
help.
doing things for me and accepting help. And in that first couple of weeks, something interesting happened. So, I certainly couldn't do anything for my family, but I didn't really understand the impact on them. I
Yeah.
and at the same, in those first couple of weeks, my brother and my brother and I are very close. Actually, had his own heartbreak event. He lost his dog, and his
Yeah.
dog was, like it was a 150-pound lap dog. It was his
Oh,
baby.
yeah.
And I remember, when that happened to him, the helper kind of fixer, I wanted to be doing things to support him and make him feel better. And, that event, um, and my need to help him, not immediately, but the light bulb did go off that, oh my gosh, just like I need to help him, people need to help me. They need to participate in this very traumatic injury. I may have gone through it, but my husband witnessed it. My kids have
Yeah.
lost their functioning mother. My friends have lost, the person they confide in. My community, is feeling like it could have been them, walking across the street. Everybody is aching for me in some way, and I've been pushing them away.
Yeah.
But I need to find the strength to let them in because they need to take some active part in this road to
Right.
recovery.
I think it's our inherent nature, to want to help people, but I think a lot of people struggle. Maybe this was a blessing and wake up call for you to accept help, know when to
It,
accept help, know when to
it
ask for
was.
help and be okay with it because it's a giving and taking world, right? You give and you receive, you give and you receive, and it has to be that balance. So when
And
somebody
that
wants to help
receiving,
you, saying thank you, you
yeah,
know,
exactly. And that receiving to me had
yeah,
always been like weakness, not something
no,
that I wanted to embrace.
right.
But luckily, so once I had this realization that, what, I need to be strong enough that it is a dimension of strength to accept help. It was, well,
Hmm.
how do I do it? And, I mentioned that I couldn't really easily accept help from people I knew. But luckily, my doctors and my husband and friends convinced me to see a trauma therapist. And the trauma therapist taught me about the philosophy of kintsugi, of taking a broken piece of pottery and not just gluing it back together, but putting it back together with a gold inlay. So you celebrate the cracks and you
Oh,
celebrate the
wow.
journey of the vase. I know, it was such an impactful idea for me. And
Yeah.
it just gave me this way of thinking about, okay, I can talk about my issues not as a victim, but these things that happened to me are part of my journey. And it just
Yes. And it could
gave
help.
me a
You could
way to
help so
breathe.
many. Yeah. And you can help
Yeah.
so many other people through your story because people go through tragic events on all different types of levels and how your mindset. I know a girl that's been on this podcast who, was told at 25 she was going to die of cancer. And she decided, you know what, I'm going to use the power of my mind and law of attraction and not listen to that and perceive this, that I'm going to get through it and change my perception. And she survived.
Yeah. And I think that
No.
that is so powerful
Yeah.
because, like we discussed earlier, we control our story. So, and I found that
Yes.
once I started sharing my cracks, like you just said, everybody's gone through something.
Well,
And
you
so,
were vulnerable, and that's what makes you authentic.
yeah. And people
Yeah.
want to connect. And so all these relationships, like people I met on soccer sidelines, a drop off that I knew
Yeah.
but didn't really know, as I
Yeah.
started sharing, they started sharing.
Mm-hmm.
And so it just built much, much stronger relationships. And then we got
Yeah.
to share the victories, like when good things happened, I got to share it and they
Yeah.
got to share their wins. And it
Yeah.
was like this collective energy and momentum. And I think, during my tough moments, and there were a lot, the recovery has taken a long time. I had this energy from my community who was rooting for me because they know where I was starting from.
Yeah. And how did this impact your career in a more positive way?
It has actually been, such a gift in all parts of my life. Because, so
Yeah.
I'll admit, and I
I
say,
love that you're seeing that. So yeah, maybe it goes back to the everything does happen for a reason. Maybe it was your sign to slow down and change, and your gift to give back to the world
yeah,
in a weird way.
I feel I have no regrets. It was a
Yeah,
hard
you
moment for my
can't, right?
family, but it's made my story, or made my impact as a human, as a citizen of the world. I think I bring more value to the world now.
Yeah.
And I say there was never a moment of enlightenment where all of a sudden I'm like, oh my gosh, I've learned so much and here I am to deliver my wisdom. But each time I share the story and I share my cracks and people share theirs, I think there's a joy to it. So you asked about work, there's a
Yeah.
stronger connection. So when I first went back to work, I as much as I might have been enlightened a little bit at home with us, friends from my town and from the soccer sidelines, I went back to work and I tried to be the same person that I used to be. And, that didn't work because I wasn't that
Oh,
person. I
right.
couldn't even stay awake for a full 8 hours. I needed a conference room to take a nap. I couldn't cross New York City streets because I was having panic attacks. And
Yeah.
I couldn't hide that, you know. And once I started admitting it and sharing, my colleagues didn't think less of me. They started helping me. They started sharing things that were
Yeah.
going on in their life. And I was building stronger relationships there. And so we were solving tougher problems together. And it's as like there are a lot of things that you need to do.
Yeah.
They're not easy problems. They take months and weeks
Yeah.
and years
Yeah.
sometimes. But when you have more trust in the relationship, it's much easier to find an energy and a momentum that's going to get you through, long, complex projects.
No, and that makes sense because I think a lot of people are not vulnerable at work because they want to keep their private life private because, corporate America has become such a weird place where people are afraid if they say one wrong thing or they think the wrong way or something, they're just going to lose their job. And maybe that is true for some horrible
Yeah.
places. And I hope that they do lose those people and those people find better places because nobody deserves to live like that. But yeah, it makes such an impact where it's like, yeah, if you can be more vulnerable and more
It's
accepting, you're gonna have better morale. And the
well,
better morale that you're gonna solve and create bigger, better things.
yeah, I think, so I work for Google, so we care a lot about building psychological safety and, teams that, can bring their authentic self. And I will share something that happened in this last month. A colleague, not somebody I work with today, but somebody that I've known for 20 years, very, close friend and colleague, hadn't spoken to him much in the last couple of years. And, I'm sorry to say he died of cancer a month
Oh,
ago.
I'm so sorry.
And, he was
Ugh,
very strong. He was strong like I used to be, like my,
yeah.
definition of strong. We don't ask for help, we get it done. And, Madison, I so wish that he had the time to understand this dimension of strength that he and I have always thought of, together as weakness, because I wish I could have helped him. I wish I could have been there, and maybe he didn't need it, but I needed it, and he may
Yeah.
have been, a colleague, but he was someone that was important to me, and our colleagues, I know we
So
try
sorry for
to,
that loss. Yeah.
yeah, and it just made me realize like it's a message I need to spread,
Yes.
because we we need to let other people help us. When
Yeah.
when the
Let them
accident
in.
happened to me, I know when
Because
the accident
loneliness is
happened to
actually
me,
like one of the biggest health epidemics right now. People, surgeons, generals have talked about this, and I think it's because people just assume that people don't want to be bothered or don't want to hear me, or they're busy with their own lives. And it's like you get older, it becomes harder and harder and harder to connect with friends or get together because everybody's so busy. But I
and
think everybody really is not that busy. They just think they're busy.
and
Nobody's
I
really that busy. You can always find
yeah.
time to
Well,
connect.
and I think it depends on how you talk about it. Like,
Yeah.
as I said, it could have been for me. I could have been like, oh my gosh, I was run over by a car, and now I can't do this. But instead, we choose our story. We decided to
We,
tell the story of, what, I was run over by a car,
yeah.
and yeah, it's hard, but I lived. And, like, here are the things that are going on, and, connect with people. So the words we use, how we show up, our
Yeah.
narrative, and believing that things happen for a reason can make all the difference in driving
Yeah.
those connections and sharing those tough moments.
I always say, like, the different, like, one way to shift your perspective really quickly, is life happens for you, not to you. So when something happens, whether it's good or bad, somehow life happens for you. It's all for some sort of purpose. Sometimes we can't wrap our head around why, but there's some sort of lesson or transformation that needed to happen in order for the next journey to begin, in a way. So from somebody who's been through, basically thought you were going to die, what do you feel that people get wrong in life, in your opinion?
I'm actually so I came across a quote recently, a Confucius quote, and it said, we all lead two lives. The second begins when we realize we lead only one.
Say
And
that again. I like that one, right? That's worth repeating. Do it again.
we all lead two lives. The second begins when we realize we lead only one.
Yeah.
This is our one life. And um I think that's something that we get wrong. There are no do-overs. We need to be, when we're present and we give and we share, that's the impact that we're making. Like when I was dying underneath, when I thought I was
Yeah.
dying, I was underneath the car, and I thought back to my kids, and I didn't want to die. My kids at
No.
the time were 9, 11, and 13. And I was like, they need me, they
Yeah.
need to know, I'm thinking, why didn't I write them letters? Do they know what I would say in their special moments? And I thought to myself, Madison, you know what? They do, because
Yeah.
we have gone on vacations, we've spent time together, we've laughed, and we've been present. And I actually felt that way about, my close friends too. We have had so many great moments, and those moments are what they're going to remember. Those
Because
moments,
you're more present now.
I think I was present then, but I realize now how important that is. And I think I'm more present now,
Well,
because
which is, yeah, and which is good too, because I think a lot of people just aren't present. I mean, I know that I have to constantly work on. I think we all do. We just have to constantly like exercise that behavior, because when we're with people, Sometimes we're complaining about the past, or we're asking advice about something that happened in the past, or we're worrying about something in the future, and we're not really present and just enjoying that exact moment.
Yeah.
I would say majority of people aren't. And I think I encourage all of you that are listening to, next time you're in a conversation, to really, or with your friends, show up empty, without anything, without the past, without the future, and just be fully in that moment and try to talk about that moment and just see how it changes and how it feels.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there's this
it's
other,
very, very interesting. Yeah, it's great.
yeah,
Great
there's,
advice.
thank you. There's this other Japanese saying that I came across called it's Ichigo Ichii, which means one time, one moment. Like the people that you and I are in this very moment, we will never be again. So let's be fully present together.
Wow. I know, it's so true. I think people get so caught up in the rat race or the cycle of life, and they don't realize, like, until all of a sudden it's over. It's like, oh my gosh, I would have done all the regrets and all the things I didn't do. And it's like people need to wake up every day realizing this could be their last day. How do you want to live it? And I'm not talking about like going to do hookers cocaine, like that's just fantasy. But like, how do you want to do it? Like, if this happened to be your last day, like try to make every day the best. Because the truth of the matter is, this specific day and this specific time will never exist again, ever.
Ever.
So it's like, why waste that day? Because some
Let's
people are like,
enjoy.
oh, it's just another Monday.
Yeah.
Well, not
So,
really. It's the only Monday, this exact date on that Monday. That date will never exist.
yeah.
So it's
So
an
I feel like it's
interesting,
being
yeah.
present, not
Yeah.
being lazy, and telling people. The one thing I did think and kind of regret is when I was under the car, I felt good that I was, with my kids and we had great times, and I was present a lot, but I also felt like, you know what? Only the people that were really close to me knew how important they were. I don't know that I was appreciating out loud enough. I wasn't loving
Mm.
out loud enough. And so, that can be a little uncomfortable, telling, but, I think telling people when they make an impact, when they do
Super
something
important. People love that.
so important, even now with, sometimes strangers or on, social media, or, if someone does something really impactful, like I want to let them know,
Yeah,
you have
I
put
love
good
that.
into the world.
Yeah. No, I love that. And I think people need it, and it's motivating. It's amazing. It's amazing. And then before we wrap it up, I want to just hear like, what would your advice be to people to get what they want?
To get what they want.
Mm-hmm.
I think I go back to, you control your story.
Yeah.
You decide how you speak about yourself, about, what's happened to you, what you want, what you want, your brand. So think about your narrative and how you want to come across. For me and my family, the accident is a happy story, and we decided to call the day of the accident Unbreakable Day and
Yeah.
celebrate it as a holiday.
Wow. I
And
think
that's
that's amazing.
a choice we made. That was
Yeah.
an active decision. We want to, we all control our stories.
I love that. It is true, right? And it's like that goes back to like the power of the mind, and yeah, everything. It's like the stories you tell yourself, the thoughts, the language you use really is controlling everything from your income to your happiness to your relationships. So choose a story, because we all live in our heads. So make it a good place to live. So make it a good story, that
Yeah.
you get what you want, that you're capable of this, that you believe in yourself.
Or
Which
that
can
you'll
be
make the
hard
right
sometimes.
decisions to get there, and if you're not
Exactly.
where you
Trust
want to be.
yourself, trust God, trust the universe, whatever it is you feel, for sure. So, where can people find this book and read more about your story and your journey?
Oh, thank you. So the book is called The Unexpected Benefits of Being Run Over.
So cute.
You can get it on actually, paperback, hardcover, Audible. And I'm reading it, I'm narrating,
Yay.
or digital, and it's pretty much everywhere books are sold. So Amazon, bookstores, Barnes and Noble, you should be able to find it everywhere.
Okay.
And
I love it. I love it. I love it. And what was it? So you were able to pitch this and get a big publishing deal to get in all the bookstores?
actually, I was not expecting anyone to read it. except my kids.
Yeah.
So I wrote it and I didn't even try to get a publisher. I'm an indie publisher. I'm an indie published. So I
Yeah. But you were
self-published.
able to get just good distribution. So I love that.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
congrats. So you guys definitely go check out The Unexpected Benefits of Being Run Over. I know if I saw that title in a bookstore and hadn't met you, I'd be like, what in the world? I have to read this. But what an amazing, inspirational person you are. And I'm so blessed that you took time out of your day to share your story with us and share your advice and the importance of knowing your story, choosing your story, and also the power of being present, which I think is such a good message. So thank you so much. And thanks to everybody listening, wherever you are. I appreciate you. We couldn't do it without you. And we'll see you next time to find out who's next.
Hey, your host here, Madison Malloy. Please make sure to subscribe to the show on all podcast platforms and please rate and review us on iTunes and Spotify. Also, if you have any questions or comments, you can email us at contact@nexttomadison.com. I thank you again for listening. Bye.